Hey guys, welcome back to Bobby Says Reviews, and yo, we gotta talk about this. So apparently, this is from Rant, Captain Marvel is projected to make $160 million opening weekend. You know, I was gonna read a little bit from the article real quick, but I will. I'll say what I gotta say after this. So, Marvel Studios' next movie could be one of their biggest, as Captain Marvel is projected to have a $160 million opening weekend domestically. Not worldwide, domestically. The 21st installment of the MCU is said to be their first female-led movie, and Brie Larson could lead the film to a giant box office success before she leads the MCU as a whole. So, in case that last bit was like lead, yes, Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, who plays her, is going to be the new Iron Man of the MCU. She's going to be in the forefront. She's going to be one of the leaders, put the whole MCU on her back and lead this thing into Phase 4 and beyond. Along with Spider-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, whoever lives with the Guardians, and so on. So they're pushing her. They need this movie to be good. It has to be good. It has to make this type of money. So that way they can keep pushing her along. Because if this movie fails at the box office and with the critics and the reviews, it's hard. Like, do you really want to keep losing money with these movies with her pushing her as the leader of the next, how many phases of the MCU, if you're taking hits, This movie here, actually, I wonder if we can look it up real quick. Hold on. Captain Marvel film. See how much, well, tell me how much. So the budget is $152 million, okay? Now, this movie will make back $152 million. I have no worries about that. But 160 in its first weekend, just domestically, not counting the rest of the world, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Now, you, me, we've seen these trailers, right? We've seen them. The first one was complete trash. No emotion. She is like a robot when she acts. Nothing. It was just forgettable. I actually do forget what that first trailer even was. I remember the opening scene when she crash lands into a blockbuster, and that was my first red flag. And if you're thinking, why would that be a red flag? I'll tell you why. This movie's set in the 90s. Alright, so this movie, in the timeline, in the scheme of things, this movie happens before all the other MCU movies, okay? So, some of my biggest fears of this movie is that it's going to be bogged and weighed and watered down with two things. One, 90s nostalgia. The first scene, the first couple frames of the first trailer that I can remember, but I know it's the opening, excuse me, is her crashing through the ceiling of a blockbuster. Oh, look, it's the 90s. Remember the times? It's like that. And that worries me. And the other thing I'm worried that this movie's going to be bogged down and weighed down and watered down with is that they're going to use this film to be a bridge between the 90s in this timeline to the movies that came after it in the timeline, because obviously they became before it in reality. But in this timeline, this movie is set before all those other ones. And in this movie, I'm afraid they're going to use it as a bridge. So when they say something, when Nick Fury or Captain Marvel herself says something, you're sitting there in the movie theater going, oh, that makes sense because in this movie they did blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, that makes sense because in this movie they said blah, blah, blah. And then somewhere underneath all the 90s, throwbacks and callbacks and all the, connecting material to the other MCU movies, there's a story somewhere. And that worries me. Just like Bumblebee, when they announced that the Transformers, but Bumblebee, would have their G1 Generation 1 look. I was like, uh-oh, are they telling us this because it's awesome? And it was. That was the only thing good about the movie. Moving on. Or are they telling us because they know the movie's bad and they trying to get us to the theaters to see it so they can recoup some of that budget? Same thing scares me here. It just does. Because the trailers kind of hit all those things I'm worried about. The first trailer, first couple of frames, blockbuster, boom. You know, and then you got you can see it. The story looks choppy. She has no emotion. The newest trailer, the trailer number 3, it's really like a 2.5, but whatever. You know, she kind of had facial expressions like, a scroll can't do things like that. But that's not emotion. That's just raising your eyebrows or moving your face, making weird faces to convey emotion or to convey a certain like a ideal or an idea. But that's not emotion. Emotion comes from the actual actor or actress that bring it through the character. Iron Man, right? Robert, when he plays Iron Man, he's not Robert to me. He's Iron Man. You know what I'm saying? Because he is that character. He's perfect. Jason Momoa, he's not Jason Momoa. He's Aquaman. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he's not an actor trying to play a character. He is Aquaman. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. Perfect example of who's not their character. Yaya, Black Manta in Aquaman. He's just a dude who's trying to pretend to be a comic book character. And you can tell because he was one of the worst parts of that movie. It was still a good movie. I gave it an 8 out of 10. But you could tell that he didn't care about the character. He wasn't trying to become the character. He was just trying to get that paycheck. They miscasted him for sure. Either they miscasted him or the script was that bad. Because trust me, the script was corny and cheesy and bad at times. The dialogue. The whole second act was garbage. The third act was amazing. Yeah. The first act was good too. A lot of, but off Aquaman, on to Captain Marvel. So they're saying that down here, right? They're basing this off of Fandango's pre-sale ticket sales, right? And the pre-sale tickets are in the top 3 of MCU history in the first 24 hours. So I can understand, like, oh, that's great, right? You're making money. That's awesome. They say that it can make as high as 180 million. This is still domestically, and as low as 140. Again, we're not talking worldwide. We're talking domestically here. This is what they're thinking. And they're thinking that it could put it in 1 billion worldwide. Now, it's not that far off. Aquaman is only $20 million away from being $1 billion at this moment when I'm recording this. So, I mean, it's possible. Now, let's just say, for fun, they hit 180 the first weekend. What an achievement, right? MCU's first female lead gets a 180 opening weekend. If the trailers are anything like the movie, that will be the last weekend, that movie makes huge money. People are going to see it. And if, like I said, if it's anything like the trailer, because to me, from the trailers, from what I can read through read between the lines, this movie is rushed. The story's choppy. It looks like she's going to spend a lot of her time on Earth with just flashbacks, exposition. Oh, well, back when I was, and then we're off in throwback lane. We're off in memory lane, taking a stroll. I don't want that, man. I don't want it to just be throwbacks, flashbacks, and most of her time on Earth. It just seems rushed. The CGI in that movie, from the trailers that I've seen, that one shot where she's in space at the end, she flies off. It's now the ending of 2 trailers back to back. You can tell the CGI mask doesn't even fit her jawline. You can tell it's fake. Obviously, it's fake. She's flying through space, but you know what I'm saying, right? Now, I know you're probably going to say, oh, but they're still working on, the CGI. I know that. Let me tell you something. This movie comes out in March. It's January. They have 2 months. And Kevin Feige, who was just at, I think the Golden Globes doing an interview on the red carpet, they asked him where they're at in this process. He said that the CGI is done. They're just doing the cuts. They're just doing the trims, the editing down to get it to the runtime they want. So if the CGI is done and it looks anything like these trailers, that's garbage. That is horrendous. Now, if this movie was in production, say for 6 months, and they showed me that trailer, I'd be like, wow, CGI is weak. But they're only 6 months into this thing. No, they're about a year and a half into this thing, and it's almost done, and it comes out in 2 months. And the CGI looks horrendous. Now, I wonder if the CGI stays the same, will critics and fans bash Marvel like they bash DC for Justice League with Steppenwolf, that was fine because Steppenwolf looked like ass. He was garbage looking. I felt so bad for him. I was like, Jesus Christ. This is the best you got for this man? But they probably won't. See, that's the one thing that bothers me about the whole Marvel DC. I'm not a fanboy of either. I bashed Infinity War. And a lot of people go, oh my God, that's so crazy. If it's a bad film, it's a bad film. I'm not going to sit here in front of this camera and say things like, it has a lot of heart, and oh, I felt like a child again. Fuck that. I want to sit down. I'm paying good money to sit down in this damn seat. I want to see a film that's good. I want the score to be on point. The dialogue, script, plot, the acting. All this has to be on point. I don't want to sit here. You just can't throw a couple CGI people up on screen and me go, oh my God, it's a 10 out of 10. No, I want substance. For some people, that's all they need. That's all they need. Oh, look. Oh, it's space. Oh my God. This is amazing. How was the plot? What? The story. What was the story about? Oh, well, but did you see when... Okay, cool. How was the score? It's so... No, dude, but you didn't see that one part? What? No, I saw it. And it was trash. I'm a movie critic. I'm a movie reviewer. I want to see good films. Not garbage films that I'm just going to give a pass depending on what side of the aisle it came from. Oh, it's Marvel? Automatic pass. DC? Nah. Because that's what they're doing to Aquaman. Aquaman is a great movie. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. Black Manta's weak. Okay? He's weak. He's a weak character. I could have done without him the whole time. And I was damn disappointed because I love Black Manta from the comics. I loved him. I hate him in this movie. The whole second act when they go off in Italy, Italia, falling in love. I didn't believe they were in love for 1 second. Their chemistry was awful on screen the whole time. And then sometimes the score or song choice they had for scenes didn't even match up. You're sitting there watching a scene, then a song or a score plays, and you're like, the hell is that? Where the hell did that come from? It takes you out of the moment, and that's what it shouldn't do. But everything else is CGI. Oh, and the dialogue. Sorry, the dialogue, the script in this movie is weak. It's very corny and cheesy. But other than that, this movie is amazing. CGI is on point. Jason Momoa is Aquaman. He did his work. He put that work in. Nicole Kidman, badass. Patrick Wilson as Orm, straight from the comics. The war in the third act, when he gets the trident, I literally watched a man who was Aquaman ride on the back of a giant seahorse while his brother was on the back of a Mosasaurus or some shit. And they fought underwater. I mean, you know what I'm saying? This movie, for having $152 million budget? Was that 152? 152, yeah. This movie looks like it was made on $52 million. From the trailers, it looks small. The CGI is awful. Brie Larson's a robot. She delivers her lines emotionless. If that's how she is through this whole movie, how can you even care about the character? You can't. You can't. If she's conveying no emotion, if this movie's rushed, if the story's choppy, if it's just all throwbacks, flashbacks, and exposition while she's on Earth, 70, 80% of the time, this movie is not going to work. It's going to fail. And even if it makes 180 in its first weekend, which I doubt it will, it's going to fail later on. This movie could be a colossal failure for Marvel, and yet they're doing this. In my opinion, they're putting this stuff out like this, so you go, well, look, it's going to be a great movie. We have to go see it. It's Marvel. Everyone's going to see it. Look, it's going to make 180 million its first weekend. We got to go. Collider said this movie could make $600 million domestically. Are you out of your mind? I'm not saying anything bad about this movie because it's a woman lead. So if you're going to say that or think that, get out of here. That's garbage. Like, for instance, I got a lot of heat for the 2016 Ghostbusters movie. It was complete garbage. It was trash. I wanted a Ghostbusters movie that was all female leads, but I wanted them to be the daughters of the original Ghostbusters and go from there. You could have made an amazing story that continued on the legacy of what we already grew up in love with, but instead you made some weird reboot sequel, and all it was pussy farts and Nickelodeon glowy ghosts. And it was horrendous. Script garbage. Jokes fell flat on their face. The best part about that whole movie is when it ended. I'm just being real. All the female leads in that movie I didn't like. Kate McKinnon's character, she's making all these advanced technological inventions in her, garage underneath a Chinese food restaurant with no money and no material. She's like, oh, like she was like a cartoon. Like every now and again, oh, look what I made. Check it out. Try it. How'd you fund this? Getting off topic again. So they're saying Captain Marvel could make 180 million as the high, 140 as the low, and it could possibly make 1 billion worldwide. Collider agrees. Collider says it could be 600 million domestically only. I think that's a tall task for this movie. I think this movie is going to be, my early prediction for this movie is a 5 out of 10. That's what I gave Infinity War a 5 out of 10. I think this movie is going to feel rushed. The story's going to be choppy. Flashbacks with her on Earth most of the time. Brie Larson, from what I can see in the trailers, is going to be emotionless, like a robot delivering lines, and it's just going to be nothing but 90s nostalgia. And this movie is going to be a bridge between, this movie and the rest of the MCU, and it's just going to be so bogged down with that stuff that the story gets forgotten. This could be Ant-Man and the Wasp-esque type of movie, and I need something better for the first female lead Marvel movie. So you guys let me know what you think down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.